Okay, great. Fantastic. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week one of our AI Ready Communities program. What we're going to do over the next 12 weeks is really explore how we prepare our communities for the introduction of AI and maximize the value of AI in our community as much as possible. Because I really think for a lot of the more mature communities out there today, AI is a savior for us. It's a thing that's going to drive communities forward, and the opportunity is absolutely phenomenal if we do it right. And I think thinking about the clients we're working with, thinking about the work we've done in the past, a lot of organizations aren't ready for that. So what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks is go through the basics, and then more the advanced layers, and then really go through how we implement this, especially on scale at a mass community, maybe hundreds of thousands of answers. So a couple of things. This is an open public session. It's going to give everyone that was interested in the program, wasn't sure, a taster of what this program is about. After this week, we go to closed sessions. So all of you that just want to enjoy the free open session, that's completely fine. I hope you get a lot of value out of it. If you do decide to go forward with the program, then contact me as soon as possible. I think we have 2 places left, possibly 1 actually. I think 1 got taken this morning, but yeah, feel free to drop me a line as soon as possible so we can make sure you're on the program. So what we're going to go through this week is the basics, the core things. I'm not going to presume any knowledge or expertise at all. I'm going to go through the things from a very community perspective. I'm not going to go deep into how AI works. There's people that can do that a lot better than what I can and talk about neural networks and weightings and all those kind of things. That's not really what I'm about. I think what I'm about in this program, especially here today, is what can we practically do within the situations that we're in. I'm also going to try out a couple of new Zoom tools that I've been keen to try out, and also just give everyone a chance to engage and chat with each other. I think for a lot of these webinars, it's me speaking a lot. And as much as I love to speak, and as good as I'm sure my accent is, I think it'd be a good opportunity for other people to engage and participate with each other. So there will be breakout rooms as part of this session today. If you're able to talk on camera and by mic, that'd be fantastic. If not, then chat works perfectly fine too. But we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it should go pretty well. So let's get started with the core basics at the moment. I think it's a surprise to, or not a surprise to anyone, that there's a lot of AI things going on at the moment. You really can't look at many blogs or news stories without learning something new about AI. And so I think that means AI is clearly very, very important. And when we think about AI from a practical perspective, and I think we did a survey on this just over a year ago to see how people were using it, pretty much everyone was kind of piloting it themselves, maybe some chat GPT experiments, but most of us were waiting on our vendor. Most of us were just kind of waiting to see what our platform vendor, Higher Logic, Chorus, Circle, Better Mode, what they were planning to do and how they were planning to deploy AI. And that's not really going to change unless you've custom built your own platform, which I don't think anyone here has. So, but correct me if I'm wrong. And by the way, I'll try and pay attention to chat through the session. I'll do my best for switching, but don't use the Q&A feature if you can help it. I can't pay attention to that many windows at once, but I'll try and pay attention to chat. So I guess the first question for everyone here today is, are you aware of what your community vendor is doing? And that's a question you can quickly answer in chat. Are you aware of what your platform vendor, whichever vendor that might be, are you aware of what they're doing with AI today? Some of you say yes, some of you say somewhat. Interesting. Somewhat. I work with them daily on it. Interesting. Okay. When we look at different platform vendors that are out there, what we've generally found is that there's a pattern. And it looks broadly like this. This isn't definitive, but it's a rough roadmap that we're seeing at the moment, which is a lot of the platform vendors at the moment at the low-hanging fruit stage. This is where you can train on just the data within a single community experience. Then they can do a generally quite good job, or just rely upon data they have access to. And that's with AI-assisted moderation, content summarization and translation, some degree of search and discovery when it's just within that vendor, and helping members make better posts. The moment it goes beyond that, where you have to combine community data with other data, that's where things get a lot more difficult to do. And we find that most vendors are kind of at this stage. Maybe they're progressing a little bit further along today. But this is broadly where they're at. So we're going to do an activity together here today. And we'll see how well this works out because I've never done this before in any of the webinars I've done in my life. I'm going to put you in groups. And what I really want you to do is find the roadmap for your platform vendor today. And you can help each other. But find the roadmap for your platform vendor today and then work out what's on it related to AI. So we're going to go in groups of around, let's do groups of around 3 to 4 people, I think. Yeah, let's do 3 to 4 people in groups. And I'll give you about 6 minutes to do this. So you're going to have 6 minutes and then I'll give you a time to stop. But in your groups, if you don't have a platform vendor at the moment, then maybe the platform vendors that you're considering. But I want you to find the roadmap links and then I want you to post them and highlight what AI features that they are deploying in the near future for you. Does that make sense? I'm going to create the groups now and you're all going to be assigned automatically to them. You ready? Let's go. Okay, is everyone back? I think so. I'm just going to quickly share my screen again. So how did that go? How many of you were able to find the roadmap that you were looking for? Some of you were. For some reason my chat isn't showing up. That's weird. Let me just reconfigure Zoom slightly. So everyone just need to quickly reconfigure my Zoom. Yeah, so let's see how it goes in chat. What do we have? Gainsight. Couldn't find any future roadmap past updates. The key thing to take away from all of this is that everyone has a rough idea of where they're at today. Yeah, just have a rough idea of what's possible with the breakout room you're at. We're just making sure that, that you'll have something that you can rely upon that you know is going to be useful for when you're finding the right roadmap. Maybe if possible, put your roadmap link in chat, just what platform you are working with. And I think that would be interesting to look at. So we got Gainsight, Circle, Microsoft Viva. I haven't seen that in a while. Vanilla. Yeah, somebody mentioned that Salesforce Experience Cloud doesn't have a roadmap. And I would say for community, it's a pretty difficult one to work with right now. So you're not alone in that. For some reason, Zoom isn't letting me see chat right now, but we'll work around it. So the key thing is that adding AI can do more harm than good if you're not ready. And some of the dangers, obviously, is that if you have bad inputs initially, then adding AI on top is going to make things even worse. Or the old saying, garbage in, garbage out. And what we're going to focus on at the moment are 2 big wins. There's lots of things that we can't control, but there's some things I think we really can control and optimize for. And these are, hold on, there we go. Now I've got my chat back. And these are GEO and RAG search. Does anyone know what these terms mean? I'll give you 20 seconds. What do these 2 terms mean? GEO and RAG search. Gen AI engine optimization. And RAG search. Retrieval-augmented generation. Yes. And why are they important? Well, let's go through what each of these things are. And obviously, there's people with a lot more expertise than I am. But I think there's a couple of things that we can take away from this. So with GEO, with generative engine search optimization, what LLMs essentially do is they surface answers from patterns learned across the entire web or whatever training data they've been given access to. So when you ask ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever tool you're using a question, what it's going to do is interpret that and look for patterns that match the answer to that question. What's really important here is that it's not referencing a database. It's not referencing a database, it's just patterns that it's learned. And this is important because what it's essentially doing is that it's predicting the next word or object through patterns learned across the entire web. It's making a prediction about what the next word or next outcome should be. And so whenever you ask a question, you're going to get an answer. And this is going to be all based on patterns that is learned. Now, there's obviously some challenges that presents. One is that for many people, they can seem like they are cause of the decline in their communities, and not directly. What's important here is that LLMs, yes, they are being used a lot, but they're not the major cause of a lot of engagement decline some of us have been witnessing so far. So if we look at traditional versus AI tool visits, what's really interesting about the data that's out there, and this is kind of almost a year old now, so maybe we need an update, is that AI tools are being used more often, but there hasn't been a collapse in search traffic. People are still using search engines almost as much as what they were before. And so if you look at the reach and level of engagement and participation of traditional search engines versus AI tools, search engines haven't been badly affected just yet, at least not by any data that we've actually seen. There's lots of intuition and assumptions being made, but they're not the primary tool of why things have declined in many communities. What does matter, and what came up in some of the chat rooms that I was joining, is that AI tools right now, or LLMs, they're not that important except for one specific thing. This. Can anyone see what's happening here? What's the biggest change that's happened here? So Charles says AI searches are definitely leading to less hits on sites. Yes and no, but not in the way most people think. I think what most people think is that people are using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude instead of going to their site. What's happening, and we've looked at this heck of a lot, is people are getting the answer to their question on search like this. And yes, it's an LLM at work, but it's not the same as deliberately going to one. And so instead of visiting the answer that you used to, clicking this link, which used to appear at the top, people now get their answer here. And that has an absolutely profound impact upon what's happening in most of our communities today. It doesn't seem like much, just a small change, but it's having an absolutely huge impact. And it's having, in many communities, a near cataclysmic effect on the level of engagement. We scraped a lot of data, I think around 7 months ago, to really see what's going on in communities at the moment. And what we found, especially in 2025, is that some communities are witnessing 20 to 40% declines in the level of engagement and participation because they don't have to ask the question in a community to get the answer. Again, this is an absolutely huge change. And we can't fight against it. What's here is here to stay. But what we can do is try and make sure if people are getting the answer in this way, that they're getting the best possible answer they can. However, there's some problems with optimizing for LLMs. Can anyone guess what these are? What's the problem with optimizing for LLMs or GEO? It's not what your users want? Possibly. I'd be interested if you can elaborate a little more on that. What's the big problem with optimizing for LLMs? They're removing the human element. You're not optimizing for your community members. None of these are actually wrong. They weren't what I had in mind, but they're not actually wrong. Hallucination, it's hard to measure impact. Much of the content comes from members. I would say it's this. It's not that much different from optimizing for search, which is there's inconsistent responses. So you can ask the same question, or two different people can ask the same question to an LLM, get different responses. There's also a long time to inclusion. LLMs are trained on data, and if they don't train on that data again, which could be a couple of months away, you're not immediately included. And they're often unable to explain why things are included and the changes that often happen. Reddit for a while was getting a lot of attention from LLMs, and now they're not. So these sudden changes, not too different from SEO, can make optimizing for LLMs very difficult. We'll come back to them just in a second. Next, we're going to talk about RAG search. What does this actually mean? Can someone explain what this is? What is retrieval-augmented generation? You can put your answer in chat. What is retrieval-augmented generation? So the answer is searching on a database level. Rosemary generated from documents in RNG source. Yeah. Most of you are broadly on the right track. Summary of what is found via search. Yeah, most of you are broadly on the right track. Essentially, and I'm going to butcher things a little bit here just to make it understandable. It's this. It's retrieving relevant chunks of information from a database at the time of the question, not patterns learned in the past, but at the time of the question, and then compiling them into an answer. So Zora, for example, I think someone from Zora is actually here today. But when someone asks a question like this, what it's essentially doing is compiling all the snippets of the answers, most likely from the links below, into a fully formed answer. And fundamentally, it works like this. A user will ask a question, like in the search box above, and then that question is classified. And based on the classification, there's different priorities of what information to use. And then information is retrieved from an organizational's index, so a database where everything is included, which might be documentation, knowledge base, support tickets, release notes, usually some variations of this. So all these snippets of information will be given to an LLM, and it'll be retrieved, filtered, prioritized, and then the user gets an answer. Does this make sense? I want to make sure everyone understands that this makes sense. Everyone understands me here. Is everyone still with me? The critical thing here is that this is a live response. This is from an existing database, which means if you make a change in the database, that's going to immediately be seen, and you're going to see the impact straight away. The critical thing is that the community has to be included in the answers. If community isn't included in the answers, then it's going to be very, very difficult to get any benefits from that community. And very often community is excluded from the results, which is really a shame. A lot of this isn't new. We've always had like opportunities to show up links and resources in the knowledge base and documentation. But this extra ability to generate an answer, that's absolutely huge. And it's most likely where everything is going, especially with internal AI and support systems. It's going to be that box at the top. People ask a question and get an answer. And if community isn't included there, that's going to be a tragedy and really devalue the importance of that community. And what's great is that it's measurable as well. We can measure how many times a community is cited in sources to a question. There's ways of measuring these particular things, but community has to be included in this database at the moment. So this is important because this is how most organizations are going to benefit the most from communities in the future. What we're seeing already is that if you ask AI questions without community data, you're far less likely to get the right response than you ask a question with community data, because it tackles more edge cases, more contextual information, more of what's happening right now. And so there's a huge benefit of including community responses within the answer. And too often community isn't included. Even in some of the largest organizations around right now, community is included. If you go to HubSpot at the moment, you ask a question, I tried this and maybe I did it the wrong way, but community isn't included. And this happens time and time again, where you can ask a question, but community data isn't included. And this is going to be the biggest threat, I think, to a lot of communities at the moment. So we know adding community is an absolutely huge win. I'll give you an example. I put in a question to the Zoho support site, and this is more of an edge case question, and I deliberately asked for an edge case question I could use. And what do you notice about these results here? This is without the community. What do you notice about these results? There's no community, but what else do you notice about the results themselves? Do you notice a pattern here? They're all documents, the same title. But what's essentially happened here is that because of the priorities and the weightings that have been given, you get the API's version 4, 5, 6, 7, because that's how it's being set up. But if you had community answered, you'd get a lot better answer. So if you actually go to the answer to this question here, well, this is what you get. And it's okay, it's documentation. It's kind of hard for the typical user or person to make much use of that. But this same question in the community, when you search the community database, exact same question here, where you find this answer, which is really interesting, and you find exactly what you need. Essentially, you have a discussion, a multi-turn reasoning kind of question, and you get the answer. And it turns out with this image, it's this little tick box here. That's how you solve the question. Do you notice the difference? There's one thing. Without the community data, you're wading through documentation to find the answer. You're wading through repetitive documentation to find the answer. If you include community, you get the answer right here. It could not be more clear. And this is why it's so important to include the community. And so the question is, how do we optimize for these things? And there's big differences between the two. The way you optimize for an LLM or ChatGPT is somewhat different from RAG search. And this is what we need to know. If you're optimizing for LLMs or GEO, what you're actually doing is shaping the baseline knowledge during the training process. And this model training might be every 6 to 18 months. It's actually very hard to get good data on how often these models are retrained. It varies tremendously by the model. But the scope is potentially huge and your community becomes a cited authority. That's where we want to be. RAG search is different. RAG search is that content is searched in real time from the database that you've compiled from all the different sources, the knowledge base, community, support tickets, etc. And the outcome is immediate. Your AI returns better answers straight away. And this means it can power all the AI tools your organization has. Customers facing chatbots, support bots, any AI connected to your knowledge base today. And it's going to return accurate answers and trusted answers, things that you've had a high influence in creating and prioritizing and deciding, hey, for these kinds of questions, this source is a lot better than this. And you can set all these things up in internal AI. But it's also limited because it's limited to only people using internal AI. So it doesn't include ChatGPT and these kind of tools. I want to take a quick pause here and make sure this all makes sense and everyone is still with me here. Does this all make sense? The differences between the two? It's very important for the rest of the program that we're very clear about what the differences here are. Because speaking to a lot of people beforehand, there's a lot of confusion. So just a quick yes or no, like if we're all clear about what the difference is. The difference between optimizing for internal tools and optimizing for ChatGPT and Claude and the like. Okay, I think most people are good. So here's a question. What's more important for you right now? Optimizing for LLMs or RAG search? And you can quickly put your answer in chat. What's more important for you now? LLMs, RAG? Interesting. A lot of people are saying LLMs. Yeah, if community is private, that changes things quite significantly. So definitely RAG. Marketing says LLMs, both RAG. Interesting. LLMs for community use RAG. Okay, really interesting. So there are things that you can do that optimize for both. Like there's a lot of difference between the two. I mean, how you handle duplicate threads, unanswered questions, and updated content and thread structure. There's lots of things that are different. But what I want to focus on are what are the similarities between them. Like for handling duplicate threads, then optimizing for LLMs is different from optimizing for RAG. Mostly because you don't want to confuse how answers are retrieved and have conflicts or lots of versions of the same documentation as we saw just now. But what matters isn't so much this, but where there is optimizations that benefit both. So you don't really need to remember this. I'll send out slides after as well. But what does matter more than anything else is what can we do that benefits both? What are the low-hanging fruits? What's the quick wins that we can put in place? And these are the critical things that we can put in place, the things that will pay off in both areas. One is improving the quality of data. That means regularly reviewing, editing, removing low value or incorrect information, prioritizing the clarity, completeness, just making sure that the answers or accepted answers are as complete and as good as they can be. 2 is improving the authority, being clear about what is trusted information. Clearly identify who is qualified to contribute the right kind of information and distinguish the experts from non-expert contributions to a discussion. 3 is a taxonomy. By this point, your community taxonomy should match other assets of the organization. You should have the same taxonomy for community and language and terminology as well. You should see next to this. They should be similar and universal throughout the entire organization. So how you categorize and name information should be relatively consistent here. And make sure you're using categories and tags correctly. We shouldn't still be having a situation where members are allowed to create tags when they create a question or a response. This should be a selection box where they can choose from existing tags or categories that are out there, just to keep things as clean as possible. And then be clear about what's fresh. What are the ownership and review cycles for the critical information? How do we proactively update and retire material in that way? What are the policies in place so we can check, hey, these discussions that have been around for a long time, can we come back to them and check what works and what doesn't? All these things aren't easy to do. But when I think about the communities that we're working with, we don't have to do it for every question. What we'll talk about over the next couple of weeks is how to take this framework and actually apply it within organizations, whether you're just launching a community or wherever you've had a community for a really long time. And what we want to get to is a point more like this. I think I shared this on the webinar a couple of weeks ago. What do you notice about this? Jessica highlights an interesting challenge when users call products different things than employees. Yeah, that's a challenge. It's one you have to overcome, but it's an interesting challenge. What do you notice about this? Lots of accepted solutions. What else? Outdated info. I think they've done a good job of being clear about that. People still use printers. Mitchell, that's a bit harsh. But yes, they do a lot. I noticed this. One is that the questions, you don't have any question titles like, hey, my printer isn't working, can someone help? They're very clear about the title of the question, which makes it easier for LLMs and RAG search. They've got the accepted solutions, they've got archive topics, all these kind of things in place. They're very good at tagging and making sure it's very clear what the quality information looks like today. And what we need to do now is very quickly just scan through this yourself and tell me what level you're at today. I'll give you maybe a minute for this. But where are you in this cycle today? Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. Some of you are saying level 1, hands down. Yeah, that's completely fine. That's where I would guess at least half the people I've been engaging with are at. Some of you on level 2. That's good. That's a good start. Making sure ahead of most folks. 2-ish, approaching level 3. If you're approaching level 3, that's fantastic. I've met maybe 3 or 4 people that are at that level at this point. 2.5 between level 1 and 2. Okay. So we're going to have breakout rooms again in just a second, but I want you to keep this in mind. Imagine which of these are important when you're cleaning up a community of different scale and different size. And I'm going to present you with a couple of scenarios, and we're going to go through these in the breakout rooms. But it also means I need to quickly share this on chat. So scenario 1, your community team is under pressure to add AI this year. The platform vendor is rolling out new AI features, but your community has years of duplicated, outdated threads and unresolved threads. Leadership wants quick wins, while your wide AI will surface the wrong answers at scale. Scenario 2, your organization is launching an internal AI bot connected to documentation and knowledge base. Support doesn't want community included because the answers aren't validated internally. They fear users might get bad information. Scenario 3, traffic to your community is declining as users get answers directly from Google and AI tools. The community still contains the best answers, but they're long, messy, and buried in discussion threads. Your task is to, in your groups, which will probably be groups of 4, is to select one scenario and highlight what your actions would be. I'm just going to copy and paste these so you can still see them in the breakout groups. Let me quickly do that. So I'm going to put them in chat now. Okay, so you should be able to see that. And we're going to go to breakout rooms probably probably in groups of 3 or 4. We'll see how it goes. Let me see if I can just close down the breakout rooms. Okay, I'm going to open all the rooms and you're welcome to join and we'll see how it goes. So pick one scenario and go through it together. What would you do in that situation? And you have, let's say, 10 minutes. Okay, is everyone back? Awesome. How did that go? Let me quickly share my screen. Yeah, to be honest, like the breakout rooms, it's the first time I've done it and you can't like test it in a small group. You need like a bigger group to test it. So it's definitely being really interesting. What I've learned from the breakout rooms is that about 75% of you completely ignore the task and begin talking about your own communities, which is completely fine. If that's where you get most value out of things, that's great. But it's definitely being interesting to explore. I think, let me just do a quick yes or no. If we do this again, how many of you would want the breakout rooms to be repeated? I think what it will do is bigger groups. Because some people in groups of 3, when people dropped off, were on their own. But yeah, I think the groups need to be a bit bigger. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't get a chance. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to test it in advance. But yeah, bigger groups make sense. Yeah, I forgot to add the countdown. That's a setting. So when I end it, I just click the button and the conversation stops. So I'm sorry for that too. Yeah, but I'll get it right the next time. Anyway, let me just make sure we have time to wrap things up, and we'll come back to this in a second. So, what I'd recommend you do by next week, or if you're not taking the program in your own time, but really get a sense of where you're at now and what the next steps are. Like, you can't jump from 1 to 4 straight away. You have to do it in stages. Yeah, you have to do it in stages and just focus on going to the next level. Even if you only move by one metric, like each month in each row, that's completely fine. But as long as you're making progress over time, in a year's time, 2 years' time, you're going to be exactly where you need to be. So hopefully that made sense. If any of you are still on the fence about joining the program, honestly, I really hope you can join us. You've got a very small taster of it. Next week, we'll have a better understanding of the breakout groups. But yeah, hopefully that made sense. But I really hope you can join us. We're going to go through hands-on in all the specific things. There's going to be a lot more breakout group, hands-on work, scenarios, activities, and also opportunities to talk to people like you. What really fascinated me, honestly, is how many of you completely ignored the task I set, which again is fine. It's just interesting to see you just talking more about your communities and your situations. But yeah, if you can join us, month 1, we're doing evaluation and risk identification. Then we're fixing the structure, signal quality and freshness, and you get a bunch of extra bonuses as well. I'm rushing to be mindful of time, and you can join at feedme.com/AI ready. And if you have any questions, drop me a line. Like when you pay, it's per organization, so you can bring as many people within your organization as possible. Thank you for that. Sorry, I rushed a bit at the end. Yeah, it'd be good to get any feedback or thoughts that you have. there'll be a calendar invite, a separate one, not a webinar one, that's going out to everyone that signed up. I think it's 12 of you that have signed up at this point. Yeah, and that will go out by the end of this week, as long as in addition to a resource site. But it's been a very early week. But yeah, if you have any feedback, please let me know. Hopefully you had a good time. And any questions, feel free to ask them in chat as well. What I might do, I actually really enjoyed the breakout group format. So I might try and do more of that just in more public sessions, not on this topic perhaps, but doesn't feel like there's lots of opportunities to chat in small groups like that. So if anyone's interested, yeah, just let me know. I also feel like I sprung it on folks. I didn't warn people in advance that they would be on camera or on microphone. So yeah, hopefully that was okay. Any questions? If you want to share your LinkedIn to connect with the people that you connected with, feel free. It's not spamming at this point. I'm completely fine with it. Okay, I don't think there's any questions. I'm just going to let things run for a little so people can share their LinkedIn if they want and connect with the people they connected with. Yeah, any other feedback would be interesting. How did you find the breakout groups? What could be better? Yeah. One thing I did find is that because some of the groups were empty, I had to move people around without warning them just so they weren't on their own. So hopefully that wasn't too disruptive. So I'll leave things open for about another minute. Jen says no one wants to hear my 2-year-old's opinions. I don't know. I think it might be interesting. Okay, I think we're good to go. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll send through the meeting invite for the people taking the program. And if not, and you're not signed up, but you want to, then drop me a line like this. I'm happy to set up a separate call, walk you through it. And thanks so much for your patience as well as I figured out the breakout rooms format. Like I said, it's a very hard thing to test about a big group. So thank you for your patience and understanding with that. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot, everyone. And I will see you all next week. Well, hopefully I'll see a bunch of you next week. Goodbye.